Okay. All right, I think we are live, and this is fantastic. I want to give my son credit for putting together this wizardry, whatever you want to call it, because, man, my son graduated from Oklahoma, and he's got a pretty cool job, and I don't know how he learns all this. I really don't. These overlays and how to connect on YouTube and Twitter and what he's doing today, but I just get out of his way, and then he says, hey, Dad, you're going to be ready for this live stream to recap the NFL Week 1, and we're going to do that. So one of the strengths I think I have is I can do things by myself. And my son set this up, and we're just going to, every Tuesday, as many Tuesdays as I can during the season, for about 35, 40 minutes, see in the chat, whatever's going on, we'll recap each week of the NFL. The good, the bad, the ugly, some of the better performances, injuries, storylines. I got the chat going here. You might want to jump in the chat. And we want you to like it, share it. You know how this stuff works. Yeah, I've been in radio 27 years. I always had a big audience. If it was Fox Sports Radio, Sports Fan Radio, now I'm on Mad Dog. Catch me Sunday, Monday. It's always a pretty big built-in audience. But when you get to these platforms, you got to start from nowhere. And some guys can start from nowhere and get, 1 million followers. Some will get 5,000, whatever it is. I don't look at the numbers. I'm just building this thing one brick at a time. And I want everybody, right as I start this off, I want to thank everybody for just following this platform. And I'm telling you, it's going to get big because we're going to get it out there and more people are going to react to it. And hope you're going to enjoy it because I should be on live radio in your market all the time. And this is the way to do it, man. When we started off in radio for me in 1996, if you weren't on a radio station or you weren't on a syndicator, you weren't on a network, no one could hear you. And other people heard people in New York or Philly, but never, ever heard of them nationally. And then people were on nationally, but, local radio's big. Now, as my wife says, and she's over there, everybody can be on whenever they want. And congratulations to that. You can have a podcast. You can have a YouTube. You could have StreamYard. You could be live on Twitter and YouTube at the same time. How about my son for pulling that off? I mean, that's pretty cool. And everybody has a voice, and everybody's opinions count. And I believe that. I believe your opinion matters just as much as mine. And I have strong opinions, and I'm sure you do. So jump on into the chat, and we'll see what happens. And again, like us on YouTube, JT the Brick YT. We're on Facebook at JT the Brick, X at JT the Brick, and there are ways to find it. So there's a debate coming up here in less than an hour, so I'm going to get out of the way before the debate. We don't talk politics. We talk sports. But the debate is coming up in about 44 minutes. I'll be long gone by then, and we'll jump in and you can get back to doing what you're doing and then check me out tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big day for me because my midday show, noon to 2 Pacific, and that's 3 to 5 Eastern, will be streamed for the first time on the Raiders YouTube site. One of my jobs is working for the Raiders. They have a tremendously big YouTube and platform. So that's exciting for me tomorrow. We'll be live on YouTube at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. And that's going to be a nice new platform for me. All right, let's jump into the NFL recap of Week 1. We start off Thursday, September 5th. The Ravens lose to the Chiefs 27-20. I thought Lamar played great in the game. He ran the ball extremely well. He was great. He had 16 carries, 122 yards. Likely had another big game, 9 for 111. But Mahomes, for 291 and a touchdown, won the game. Why did they win? Because the Chiefs have a couple of fast players that catch the ball and explode to the end zone. The fact that the Bills did a deal that gave Kansas City the ability to get Worthy and get another great player is mind-blowing to everybody. Kansas City wins. They're 1-0. Baltimore's 0-1. That game was so massive for Kansas City. I think you want to play Kansas City Week 1, but there's no rust. They don't have any rust. You saw the Niners last night. I'll get to them. No rust. That's scary. That Kansas City can come out and beat Baltimore and the Niners can come out without Christian McCaffrey and play at a very high level and be that good that quickly. So Kansas City and the Ravens, I picked Detroit and Baltimore as my Super Bowl pick with Detroit winning the Super Bowl. I'll live with that. I'm okay picking Super Bowl picks, but it's a crapshoot. Baltimore's already down one game to Kansas City in the AFC when it comes to the 1 seed. And remember, Baltimore could not beat Kansas City at home last year. So was it a bad loss for the Ravens? No. It's a tough out for the Ravens. When you have to play a tough game like that, like the Jets had to go play against the Niners cross country week 1. I mean, that is a tough way to start the season. Then the Eagles beat the Packers, and the Eagles scored. Saquon Barkley had the monster game. 3 touchdowns total, 24 carries, 109 yards. Hurts turned it over, but they were able to win that game. But the big story was Jordan Love got hurt in São Paulo, Brazil. He gets hurt. It's not career-threatening. A matter of fact, I mean, he could play. I mean, if this was the playoffs right now, he would play with that sprained knee bruise, sprained whatever, MCL. It's not a tear. So I would be careful there. I'd sit him out another week. If they go 0-2, they go 0-2. Green Bay is a very good team. They cannot afford to jeopardize Jordan Love. And Philadelphia got a nice home win on the road in São Paulo. Now, a lot of fans were pissed off that the league played that game there. I'm not one of them. I like the international aspect of the NFL. I understand the money, the economy, and the fact that it's smart to spread the sport internationally there. But it was very uncomfortable for the players to get there on a 9+ hour flight for both of them. But they all get paid. And all the players get paid, right? They collectively bargain around the league as all the teams, and they get a big chunk of the pie. So playing internationally is going to be here for good. Roger Goodell's going to want to do it more and more and more. We're playing in Munich, Germany. You're playing in London a multiple amount of times. You're playing in South America. And they're going to keep going, man. They're going to keep going. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a game in France. Remember, France has huge soccer fans and wild, passionate fans in sports there. I wouldn't be surprised if they played in the Far East and Japan down the road. Roger Goodell and the NFL, the Eagles beat the Packers. I didn't think it was a great game. I thought the field was a little bit sloppy overall. But for the Packers, that's a tough loss because they could have lost their quarterback for the entire year. And they didn't lose their quarterback for the entire year, which is good news there. But when you lose that game, the way the Ravens lost and the Packers lost, you have to stew and get upset because you don't play until the following Sunday. That's a long time to be off. And Baltimore is going to get the Raiders in their home opener. I'll get to that in a minute. All right, Sunday, September 8th, as we look back, the Steelers beat the Falcons 18-10. Man, oh man, Mike Tomlin just freaking wins games. The Steelers didn't have Russell Wilson to play. They went with Justin Fields. He only threw for 158 yards. Najee Harris, 70 yards, and they win the game. If I told you the quarterback throws for 150, the running back runs for 70, and they're going to win the game against Atlanta on the road, you'd think I'm nuts. But the reason they did was Kirk Cousins was horrible. Absolutely terrible in that game. And that's unacceptable because, remember, they drafted Michael Penix Jr. to be the quarterback of the future, and that was a bold move. But Cousins is supposed to be able to jump in there and play well because he's a veteran. But remember, he came off a very serious injury, and he had a lot of rust on him. 18 of 26 for 155, a touchdown and 2 interceptions, and he was sacked twice in the game. That is pathetic for Atlanta. And Atlanta could be in trouble. Remember, a lot of people picked Atlanta to be that team that maybe could win the division. Did you see Baker Mayfield? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. You see my guy Baker? But that's a bad loss for the Falcons because they lost the game at home. It wasn't a divisional opponent. And once again, the Steelers and TJ Watt wrecked that game. He absolutely wrecked that game. And he's off to another start to maybe be the Defensive Player of the Year. Max Crosby, I'll get to. The short list of Myles Garrett and them. Good luck trying to chase down TJ Watt after the game he had there. So the Cardinals-Bills was interesting because the Cardinals were up 17-10 at the half, and the Cardinals put a big scare into the Bills fans at Archer Park, New York. Kyler Murray came out dinking and dunking, completing passes, and everyone had said, uh-oh, look at the Cardinals. They're going to win this game. And then in the third quarter, give Sean McDermott some credit for adjustments. The Bills outscored the Cardinals 14-0 in the third quarter, won that game 34-28. That's a really good win for Buffalo because that would have been awful after Kansas City won and Baltimore lost if Buffalo lost. We'd have the Ravens and Buffalo after week 1 already trailing Kansas City. Buffalo came back from the dead and won that game. Josh Allen, 232 and 2 touchdowns. Cook on the ground, 71 yards. Let me stop this for a second and remind everybody. if you were fortunate to win week 1, be happy that you won week 1. As Dave's in the chat, and he wants Baker Mayfield in the silver and black. I think I said that a year ago, Dave, if you were watching the podcast. If you won week 1, be happy you won. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't break down the numbers. Don't be a fantasy geek. Don't look at time of possession. Who gives a crap? Did you win the game? You did win the game. Well, the rest of the league sucked. Everybody sucked. The league gave you hot garbage trash on a platter for you to watch. They made you go to Peacock. They're making you go to Amazon. There is a direct TV carrier war with ABC. How about that? I was sitting in a major casino last night. I couldn't watch Monday Night Football because DirecTV didn't have the game because they're in a carrier war with ABC, ESPN. And that hot stinking garbage that Goodell gave us week 1, if you won, celebrate. Have a Modelo. Have a party tonight. You're 1-0. Do you know how many fans wish they had a win? Do you know how many fans are about to go 0-2? Do you know when you go 0-2, you're almost left for dead? Unless Emmitt Smith holds out and comes back and you win the Super Bowl like the Cowboys? So everybody, I'm sitting here, how about that Bears-Titan piece of garbage? Oh my God, how bad was Caleb? I like Caleb. He's a hell of a player. Will Levis on his knees throwing the ball away. There were high school football players who would not make the throw that Levis made that lost the game. Friday Night Lights quarterbacks would not make the throw of the mayonnaise man Levis. He threw the game away. And Brian Callahan made a really interesting point. He said it. I couldn't believe he said it. First time he coaches, he's the head coach of the Titans and says, if we punted on first down, we would have ended up winning the game. Woo! That's a hell of a soundbite. That's the head coach of the Titans calling out his offense saying, we suck and we gave the Bears a freebie. I mean, the Titans should be 1-0. Bears are 1-0 and the Bears were terrible. Caleb Williams had a rough debut, man. He was just flat out terrible in that game. So as I'm looking at all these games here, win and move forward. Loser, you got some pressure on you. One of the things I got right, and I don't get paid to get things right, but I get paid not to make a lot of mistakes. A lot of radio hosts and TV guys make a lot of mistakes. I pride myself in not doing that. I told you the Bengals would have problems. Now let's look at the Bengals for a second. They lose to the Patriots 16-10. Here's fact, not fiction. Mike Brown, son of Paul Brown, historically very cheap. I've talked to players who played for the Bengals, the Bengals, and then played for that team and came to other teams. Basically, if you played for the Bengals in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you basically had to pack your lunch to get on the plane. You almost had to bring your sheets on the road. I mean, you want to talk about a cheap organization, and now all of a sudden, they all want to get paid. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. What the hell is Joe Burrow walking around dyeing his hair blonde? What is this, a fraternity prank? What's Joe Burrow doing blonde, dyeing his hair blonde? I mean, JT the Brick here. I'll throw a little something in there every once in a while when the gray comes in. But Joe Burrow, what are you doing? So there's an egomaniac team in Cincinnati. They got an owner upstairs who's cheap, doesn't want to pay. And you got Jamar Chase saying, I want to get paid $1 more than Justin Jefferson. Oh, egomaniacs, man, ego. The player entitlement of America. James Harden, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb. Everyone wants to get paid. As the great philosopher Randy Moss once said, straight cash homie. So I called that out. I told you, Cincinnati's not that good. They don't have an elite roster. They don't have Joe Mixon. They don't have Pro Bowlers all over the place. But everybody who's lazy says, well, I got Cincinnati in the AFC Championship. Why would you have Cincinnati in the AFC Championship? What gives you the reason to believe that Cincinnati's a playoff team this year? They just got their ass kicked by Gerard Mayo and the Patriots at home, and they weren't ready to play. You think that, what, are they going to flip the switch? What a win for the Patriots. So out here in Vegas, they have the Circa Survivor contest. Big contest. Survivor, you get to pick a team once. And if that team wins, you can't pick the team again. Over 4,200 people got knocked out of Circa Survivor because they picked the Bengals. Wow. How about that? How would you like to tell your wife, your girlfriend, your partner, hey, honey, I'm going to Vegas. I'll be there for the weekend. I'm entering into the Survivor contest at Circa. and you can't get out of week 1. You can't even freaking make it to Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. Goodbye. Cincinnati pretty much turned that contest upside down. I didn't see the Texans and the Colts. I got it on the DVR. There was a great throw by Richardson. Stephon Diggs played well, and Joe Mixon played well. Look, everybody, we know the Texans are a potential Super Bowl team. I'm not going to go that far with them getting there, but C.J. Stroud is a hell of a player, and that's a game they could have lost, and they won. So for all the Indy fans, man, you got to be kicking yourself. You know how great that win would have looked if Indy would have beat Houston to start the season off? Oh, my God, that would have been a great win. But the better team found a way to win on the road. So nice win overall there. I like the Texans a lot this year because they're very balanced. They got a good mobile quarterback. They got fast wide receivers, running back and Mixon. Their defensive line is nasty, just nasty. So they're a good team. A lot of teams would want to be the Texans, and the Texans are going to play this year under a lot of pressure. The Dolphins and the Jaguars. Let me get this out of the way with Tyreek Hill. I don't want to dive into too much of this because I don't want to die on a hill for Tyreek Hill. If I'm going to lose my job, it ain't going to be for Tyreek Hill getting me in trouble. I will just tell you this about Tyreek Hill. He's a really, really, really bad guy. I went over his rap sheet today on my local show. He could have 10 kids by 4 different baby mamas. That makes you a bad person. It does. If you're not there for your kids and you have kids all over the place and you're not a dad and you're not a husband, you're not a great guy. Okay? I can point that finger. Just had my 25-year wedding anniversary. 2 boys. I'm in the house tonight. Tyreek Hill, basically look at the assault allegation and the time he served probation for what he did in college and gotten kicked off his college team. And then look at all the times the police came to his house in South Florida. He showed up, he scored a touchdown. Police officers should treat everyone with respect. No one, doesn't matter their gender or race, should ever be pulled out of a car. But when a police officer tells you to roll down the window, you roll your window down. When a police officer says you're speeding, I'm going to talk to you and you're in a rush, shut your mouth and sit there and get your ticket. And don't roll the window up on a cop who doesn't know who you are and doesn't know what you have behind your tinted windows that could put that cop in harm's way. Okay? I've always said this. I got a lot of friends who are cops. Police officers who are bad and police officers who break the rules should be held accountable under the law and should lose their job. But what a joke it's been this week watching everybody come to the defense of Tyreek Hill. He's one of the worst guys you could ever imagine. He is a terrible person. And people now are defending Tyreek Hill on sports cable shows. Have we lost our minds in this country? We must have lost our minds. So that'll play out in court, and we'll see what happens there. Jaguars blew a lead. They're up 17-7 at the half. What's going on, Trevor Lawrence? How could you not win that game? You got Trevor Lawrence in a pretty good roster there. You got a big lead on the road. You're a warm weather team. You play in the humidity. I mean, if it was Buffalo or New England and they wilted in the humidity, that's one thing. Great win for the Dolphins. They had a major distraction before the game in Tyreek Hill. Every player in that locker room knew that Tyreek Hill was brought to the ground by the police. So they were on their phones with their girlfriends, wives, kids, whatever, and they had to shut it out and go win a football game, and they did it. They shut out the Jaguars in the second half of that game. Shut them out by scoring 13 points and winning 20-17. That could be the difference in the playoffs. If you think of the Dolphins, I got the Bills winning the East and the Jets and the Dolphins neck and neck, both 10-9 win teams. The Jets lose and the Dolphins win. Week 1's really important. Oh, my God, what happened to the Giants? What happened to the Giants? So I got any Giant stuff here that I could show you here in the house? I think I do. But, I mean, what's going on with the Big Blue Wrecking Crew? It's their 100-year anniversary. You bring back Parcells, Lawrence Taylor, Coughlin, Eli, Phil Simms, and you can't play football? You wear a throwback uniform that looks like something a hockey player wore in the 1930s? You tell your fans to come to that rat hole dump at the Meadowlands in the swamp? That stadium was outdated 20 minutes after they built it. And then you put out that type of garbage for the fans of New York, tri-state area, New York? And it's Sam Darnold, everybody. That wasn't Fran Tarkenton. Okay, that wasn't Warren Moon. in his prime with Randy Moss and Chris Carter. Giants lose 28-6. Darnold threw 2 touchdown passes. And we know how bad Daniel Jones is. Daniel Jones is a really good kid. They love him in that organization. John Mara, the owner, loves him. Good guy. You can be a really good guy and lose football games. I've seen plenty of those guys. The Giants got to make a decision now on Daniel Jones. It's really similar to the Yankees and Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton strikes out pretty much every 3 out of 5 at bats. He sucks. He hits a home run every once in a while for the Yankees, never in the clutch. And the Yankees are paying him too much to cut him. They can't trade him. They can't cut him because they'd have to eat his salary. It's the same thing with Daniel Jones. So for the Giants, they better find a way to beat the Commanders. And you know the owner, John Mara, if you watched Hard Knocks, was pretty upset about the fact they lost Saquon Barkley for nada, for nothing. And you saw the body language and all the memes out there. So Joe Cheyenne and Brian Dable are going to be fired. So let it be said by JT the Brick tonight on this podcast live stream. It's a lock that Bill Belichick will be the next head coach of the Giants. But let me throw you a little curveball. Here. Belichick had his great early success. Remember, he started with Detroit, right? He worked with other teams before he came to the Giants. And then as the Giants defensive coordinator with Lawrence Taylor, he won 2 Super Bowls under Parcells. Won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. Belichick should consider taking over the Giants midseason. Here's why. It sounds crazy, but I want to put it out there. He's going to be the head coach of the Giants because the Giants are going to pay him. And he should be coaching. And if he can break Don Shula's all-time wins record in a Giants hoodie, it'll be a big deal for Belichick. It really will. And it'll be a shot at Robert Kraft and everybody who let him go in New England. And it'll be a shot to Atlanta who didn't hire him and everybody else. If I'm Belichick, and he's doing a pretty good job on TV, I would go out there and take a phone call from Mara and Tisch, the owners, at about week 10 and say, hey, Bill, get off TV. Get off the podcast. Get in the building. We're going to fire these guys. You can have the staff here. You can do what you want. I want you to observe this team. I want you to observe this team because you're going to take over. So remember I said that. It probably won't happen. He'll do it next year. He'll enjoy this year on TV with his commitments, but Belichick will be there. I cannot believe the Raiders lost to the Chargers. I can't believe it. The Raiders could have won the game in the first half. They had the ball up 7-3 with 2 minutes to go, and they were going to get the ball to start the third quarter. So all the Raiders had to do was score at the end of the first half, which isn't hard to do. They were at midfield. Go into the locker room, get the ball to start the third quarter, come out, get a field goal, score, game's over. Game's over. Chargers was so bad in the first half, they couldn't do anything. I mean, the box score of the Chargers, they had 2 monster runs, a 61-yarder and a 47-one by Dobbins. He had a great game. Justin Herbert only completed 17 passes for 144 yards. I mean, Gardner Minshew completed 75% of his passes and lost the game. My point was the Raiders had a golden opportunity to go into L.A. in front of all their fans and win. And Gardner Minshew threw the ball behind his back, backwards. You know, Gardner Minshew's been playing since Pop Warner in high school. Played out at Washington State, played for the Colts, the Philadelphia Eagles. Played for the Colts, Jaguars. Never threw a ball behind his back. Never, not once. He does it in his first game ever as a Raider with a bristling mustache and the eye patch. How the hell is he throwing a ball behind the line of scrimmage that lost the game? That's how they lost the game. So the Raiders were in a position where they could have stole the game late. So they could have stole the game at the end. They were down 16-10, and Antonio Pierce decided to punt in Charger territory. And I don't agree with the call, but he's the coach. Chargers got the ball and put the game away. I thought the only chance that the Raiders would have had a chance to win that game is to steal it. They should have won the game in the first half. They could have won the game in the fourth quarter, but they punted the ball away. I was pretty surprised by that. Without a doubt, the best performance week 1 was the Saints, but they played the Panthers, who were awful. Derek Carr and the Saints routed the Panthers 47-10. Look, give Derek Carr credit. When he wins games, and I saw him, covered him 9 years with the Raiders. When he played well, he was really good. I mean, Derek Carr's a good quarterback. Didn't win a playoff game in Oakland and Vegas. Didn't win a playoff game. But he's a really good quarterback, and he played a great game. He quieted a lot of critics. Now, the Panthers aren't very good, but I'm here to recap week 1, and the Saints were very good. So the Saints, all of a sudden, start to look like they're for real with a matchup with the Cowboys coming up here. The Broncos rolled out Bo Nix, and they actually rolled him out 2 or 3 months ago because some of these national media frauds were kissing Bo Nix's ass for the last 2 months over the summer as you were going to the beach and going to the lake or going in the pool, and everyone was blowing kisses to Bo Nix like he was the second freaking coming of what? He couldn't have played worse. He was terrible. Seattle and their defense was fantastic. Kenneth Walker III stepped in and played well. And Mike McDonald's career as a head coach starts off with a win. And here we go again with Sean Payton. He's got a project at quarterback. Bo Nix has got a lot of talent. But are people still picking the Broncos to go to the AFC Championship game? Who's out there? Let me take a look at the chat for a second. Good to see everyone there. So for the Broncos, that's not the end of the world, but for the Seahawks, quietly, the Seahawks are 1-0. They had a very nice win. Very good defense. Their defensive secondary was sticky. Man, they were fantastic. They only gave up 7 points in the second half to the Broncos, and the Broncos were in that game with safeties early. It was a bizarre game. Congratulations to the 12s. LOB, the Legion of Boom. It kind of looked like the Legion of Boom from what I saw in the highlights. Cowboys beat the Browns 33-17. Great win by the Cowboys. They got everybody back in time. The Dak contract, he was going to play with or without the contract. Dak ended up getting the contract and went out and played well. CeeDee Lamb played well. But the Browns were awful. If you're a Cleveland fan and you want to jump in the chat here, what do you do now? I mean, Deshaun Watson, before he went to Cleveland, was great. He was super elite. He was top 5. He was just too good. He could run it. He could throw it. He could make every play. He was a hell of a player. Now he's forgotten how to play football. Jameis Winston is in the wings. I think you give Deshaun Watson, because of all that guaranteed money that he has left, you have to play him as long as you can. But the fans in Cleveland are the only fans in sports, other than a handful of them in Clemson, none of them in Houston. Deshaun Watson's world is caving in on him. There's another allegation from another one who wants to take him to court. I mean, things aren't going well for Cleveland, man. And Deshaun Watson's not playing well. And for the Cowboys, going into that game, I thought that Cleveland was the right side of that play. I got that wrong. I thought Cleveland would have been ready to play week 1 in their building. CeeDee Lamb didn't play. He just got in there. The Dak contract stuff, what's going to happen? And the Browns just got steamrolled. Whew. The Broncos, got beat, but they were in the game 26-20. The Browns were never in the game at home. I mean, they were never in the game. What's Kevin Stefanski going to do there? I mean, what should he do? Let me throw that out to you. If you're Kevin Stefanski, what do you do? I mean, you got to listen to the owner, Jimmy Haslam. He's the guy who threw the $240 million down on Deshaun Watson. He works for the owner. But what are you going to do? You're going to jump in there and say, hey, man, let's bench a $240 million guy? Kevin Stefanski wants this guy out. Kevin Stefanski doesn't want Deshaun Watson in his life for the next 2 or 3 years. I doubt it. What's he going to do? It's the same thing with Brian Daboll. Don't you think he wants to go to John Mara's office and say, get Daniel Jones the hell out of here? I'm going to lose my job if you give me Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. A great win for the Cowboys. Dak looked good. He had no time to celebrate. How would you like to walk into a locker room knowing you're getting $241 million guaranteed? And then suit up, put your socks and cleats on and go, I'm going to be the richest player of all time. Now, very quickly, before we wrap this up, I don't believe Dak deserved that contract. I don't believe he deserves $60 million a year. I don't believe that people deserve to get raises just because of the year. Raise your hand and beep your horn if you're in your car, if you get a raise because it goes from 2023 to 2024. It doesn't work that way. But it works that way in the NBA and the NFL. Every year, everybody gets a raise. Quarterbacks aren't worth $60 million. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes are worth that. Joe Burrow, okay, we can have a conversation on Justin Herbert. Whoever you want. Dak Prescott doesn't deserve that money. He plays in Dallas. There's no state taxes. He's got a national yogurt deal and a car deal locally. He's got the star on the side of his helmet. And Jerry could have gave him less money 6 to 8 months ago. Congratulations to Dak for holding out with his agent strong. He got paid, and Jerry wasn't able to go out and get another player. And that's what I thought was interesting, that Jerry could have got that deal done with his son, Steven. And I respect their business acumen. I do. What's that?
Did you see Matt? Shout out Matt on the YouTube
Matt?
channel. Gave you your first donation.
Ooh, a donation. You know, people can pay me on this.
I know, Matt.
I'm not looking for money. I just said, as the great philosopher Randy Moss once said, straight cash, homie.
Here's what he wanted. Here's his
question. He wants a question. He's paying for a question. This is landmark in the history of JT the Brick. This has never been done before. If we had a 2007 Giants team, we'd be unstoppable. Pierce is a Super Bowl winning player. And so is Tom C. We need a Brandon Jacobs, not a fumbler. Are you telling me that Matt paid $5 for me to answer a question? Holy crap.
Matt's getting mod. I'm modding Matt on chat.
Whoa.
Matt, type in the chat so I can give you a mod because you're the first ever.
So you're telling me that people can pay me for my hot Dorito takes? I did not get in this to get paid individually, man. But, a little donation here and there. You saw my son. I got another son at ASU, man. You know how much it costs? Google how much it costs out-of-state tuition ASU. I gave him the Tesla, man. I gave him the Tesla to have out there, and I'm paying rent. Paying a lot of rent for him to live in Scottsdale. And I'm getting people giving me questions for $5. Man, I love you for that. All right. Why didn't my Raiders go and sign Baker Mayfield? He was available. I said it on the radio. Go get Baker. I did. I said, go get Baker Mayfield. I love Baker Mayfield. I watched him play at Oklahoma. He's got a statue. He's got a Heisman Trophy. You know, he broke the all-time NFL rookie touchdown record when he came in with Cleveland. He was a good player in Cleveland. He was. Cleveland's a mess. You think Cleveland would rather have Baker Mayfield now or Deshaun Watson? And Baker and the Bucs pounded the Commanders 37-20. Baker had a brilliant game, man. The offensive line, I went back and looked at a lot of that game. The offensive line was fantastic. Really good. So Baker, 24-30. Man, Baker's numbers. 289, 4 touchdowns. Jaden Daniels threw for 184. He ran for 88. It's not a bad game. I mean, Jaden Daniels is going to make some mistakes for obvious reasons there. But great win for the Buccaneers. That's an NFC conference game. We know that the Commanders aren't going to the playoffs, but a nice conference win for Baker Mayfield in that team. Buccaneers are good. They were a playoff team last year, and they're off to a good start, but they played a very weak team. So really what we've been talking about, how do you go out there and figure out who's good or not if you're playing a bad opponent? My Super Bowl pick, the Detroit Lions beat the Rams 26-20. The Rams took the lead in the fourth quarter. Lions got a late field goal to get to overtime. And then overtime, David Montgomery just went down the length of the field and ran it down their throat. That was some old school football, man. Did you see Dan Campbell just saying, don't pass it, run it? And the Rams don't have Aaron Donald anymore. Why the hell did Aaron Donald retire? Do you think that David Montgomery would have been able to run the ball in from midfield down to the goal line and in if Aaron Donald was there? That tells you something you might want to do against the Rams in the future. Why put the ball in the air? Just run it right at them in a tight game. Lions did not look great, but they played tough, and they win that game. It's an important game because the Rams I have as a playoff team, and I have the Lions winning the Super Bowl. That could be the difference with the Lions playing a home game or not. And then let's wrap it up with the Jets losing to the Niners. They had a 7-3 lead in the first quarter. Christian McCaffrey didn't play. And the Niners just steamrolled them, and there were no answers. The offensive line, Trent Williams, played well. This Aaron Rodgers, 167, a touchdown interception. Breece Hall, 18 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown. But it was all about Jordan Mason. So quick story. The last preseason game, the final preseason game for the Niners was at the Raiders. I called that game on radio. And Mason, I called him on every play. He was running the ball in Allegiant Stadium. He's pretty good. And I knew he was good coming into this game. And did he get it wrong? Is he hiding something? Did Kyle Shanahan break the rules by telling him that he was going to play on Friday when that's not supposed to be what happens there. And then McCaffrey goes out and McCaffrey doesn't play. And all you fantasy guys lose your mind because McCaffrey doesn't play and he's inactive at the last second. And then Jordan Mason runs for $147 and a touchdown. That was pretty serious stuff, man. Niners won that game easily. And for the Jets, that's a bad beat, man, having to travel to Santa Clara. Ooh. I mean, they left Santa Clara probably at 10, 11 at night. If that, by midnight, and had to fly cross country.
At 7 a.m.
Rogers said they got in at 7 a.m. this morning. Wow. All right. Why don't we...
705 people
Yeah,
Twitter.
nice. Yeah, we got 705 people in the Twitter. I don't know what that means. You know, I don't lose my mind over the numbers here yet. I care about real numbers. You're in my house, like the stock market, the price of my home, my real estate, all that. But I guess as my son's right here, you got to get the numbers up, and we're getting the numbers up, man. We're building out platforms because of guys like Larry Krueger and Damon Bruce who told me to do this. And other people who said, you know, radio is not what it used to be anymore. Now, radio was great when I came in. I won the Jim Rome Smack-Off. Got a radio show as the co-host of the Pete Rose Show. 17 and a half years on Fox. I still think that's a record, unless the overnight guy Ben or Dan Byer beat me to that. But I was in a pretty good spot there. And now I'm on Mad Dog Sports Radio. I think the best satellite channel in all of sports. But what we're all doing now is we're all building different platforms just in case. Right? Just in case you say, hey, what happened to you, JT? I used to hear you in Miami, or I used to hear you here. Well, you can hear me now. It looks pretty good. It's easy to follow. So I need everybody to like it on YouTube, JT the Brick YT. Go like it and subscribe to that and check us out on Twitter. So let me just give you a couple of leans. Week 2. So that's what we'll do on Tuesday. We'll recap week 1. No teleprompter, just me. No producer in my ear telling me the stats. This is me, focused on you. The Bills-Dolphins is a Thursday night game. That's a great game. Bills are better than the Dolphins. The Bills are going to win that game. The Buffalo Bills are going to go win that game in South Florida with that bad guy, Tyreek Hill, and he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Saints and Cowboys, we're going to see what happens to Derek Carr. Woo, this is a tough one for Derek. He couldn't have played better. He should have saved a little bit. Could have saved a little bit for the Cowboys. Cowboys home opener, they will not lose. What's the line on that? Dallas already minus 6.5, John. There's a heavyweight fight, Buccaneers-Lions. Detroit minus 7. I love the Bucs to cover that spread. They might not win. Packers, the quarterback question is going to be real interesting. I think the Packers win with their quarterback, no matter who it is, over the Colts. Niners are at the Vikings. Man, the Vikings got to feel pretty good about themselves, beating the Giants and embarrassing them there. The Chargers get the Panthers. Man, you Charger fans are lucky. There's only like 70 of you national, but you're going to go 2-0 beating the Panthers. Raiders are at the Ravens. Uh-oh. Let's shock the world, Raider Nation. Let's keep that game close. Let's have a game in the fourth quarter, Raider fans. Let's have a shot in the fourth quarter. Raider Nation, unite. Hold on. Let me get someone here. Let's do this for Charles Woodson. Right? Let's get Woodson to go get a ball. Let's go get C. Wood to go get a ball in that game. And then another marquee matchup, Bengals at the Chiefs. Bengals look so bad, I think they go to 0-2 and the Chiefs go to 2-0. The Monday night game will be the Falcons at the dirty, stinking, green, drunk birds of Philadelphia. I got this done. What time is it, man? Right before the debate. Man, I can't believe I said it. I'm going to actually watch the debate. I'm in a swing state, Nevada. You don't know who I'm voting for. I think you have an idea, but you don't know. I don't know who you're voting for, and that's why I keep politics off my platforms. Thanks for joining me. Let's see more of this, but you'll get me on Tuesdays. JT the Brick, I thank you for joining me on my live stream. And I thank my son who put all of this together